Okay, so we're just going to continue on with this model that we started last time. And this time, if we look at our reference image, we're going to look at how we can create these individual um, components to add the detailing into this building. Okay, and then essentially what will happen is you should be able to then see all these other different types of buildings that we've got here. You should be able to make this the main part of those buildings in the same way that you did previously with this part. Um, make all these different types of ones, and then you'll have these individual components of these details which you can just sort of drop onto these other ones in a modular way. Cool. Okay, so this is the one we're looking at mainly here. So we'll start with the door, shall we? So just a side note though, I suppose, before we start. So obviously the main sort of purpose of this might be for something like a game. Um, if this was put into a game engine, these are not models that we would be able to go inside. If we were building it as a model for a game that you could go into, um, or for anything else that you could go into, then it would be done in a different way, just as a kind of side note, in a bit of a more complex way. So it's better to do it like this when you're first starting out, as this is a beginner project. Anyway, the door. So first things first, we're going to get our primitive shape, which is going to be the box. Okay, we're going to start with the box, and we need to draw the model here. So this time we're not cutting into the shape that we've got already with like the connect tool and everything like we had been doing before. We're making this out of a new model, okay? But I do want to draw it on this surface. So how we can do that is with this thing here called auto grid. So if I didn't have that checked, by default it's off, and I had my box and I was trying to draw a box here, um, see that's made a box, but the box is actually way over there, even though had my mouse cursor here, okay, which is not what I want. So if I click auto grid on and then start drawing a box here like that, this is actually now going to be exactly on this surface. Okay, so there's my box, and you can see it's drawn against that wall. Okay, so when you first model it, you first draw that box, it again, like this we did the stairs, it doesn't need to be bang on perfect because we can do some changes afterwards. It just needs to kind of generally be in the right place. Um, now I can look at my reference. Um, Maybe it wants to be a bit higher. Sometimes it's like the length here, you notice is actually the height, but it's fine. I'm going to turn auto grid off and get my move tool back now. Okay, so go to edit. We just want to kind of tweak it until it's kind of where you want it to be. It's maybe sticking out a bit too far. So, okay, something like that. That's fine. So now I want to modify this further. So I can right click it, convert it to an editable poly. And you can see first things first, I've got this kind of archway thing going on there with the surrounding of the door. I'm lost for what that's actually called. Um, so I need to go to edges, and if we get the top one there and the bottom one, we can do a connect. But this time, so previously I'd just been clicking connect and then moving them. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the little settings box next to connect, okay, which brings up this guy here, which we can move around. Because I know I want more than one line adding, so what I can do is I can up that to 2 lines, and then the second one down here, if I click on the arrows and drag my mouse up and down, see it kind of pinches and pulls those. So I want that to be somewhere around there. That's about right. Okay, and then I can tick to apply that. So I've added those 2 connecting lines in and positioned them all just within those settings. So it's just a quicker way of doing that rather than manually doing it in the way that we were doing before. Sometimes it's better to do it with the settings. So okay, now we need a line going all the way across. So I'm going to select all 4 of those connections there. Be careful though, because when you've used the settings for a tool, when you just click it the next time, what that's done is it's remembered what I did previously and applied that rather than just hitting it in the middle like it was doing. So that's one thing that's just kind of annoying really about the settings. But so now I need to go back into settings again. It kind of means that you need to use settings every time afterwards. I can reduce that down to 1. This kind of pinching thing, it doesn't do anything if you've got only one connection, but the one underneath it is like a slider. So I can just slide that up and down within the settings. So something like that seems about right. And I'm going to hit tick to apply that. Okay. And then again, as before, what I'm doing there is making sure that I've got a polygon here, which you can see like that. Okay. And what I might actually do is I'm going to select all the outer polygons, and then I'm going to get my extrude tool. Let's look at the settings again for extrude. Okay, so you can see my extrude tool. Not as many settings this time, but I can be a bit more specific about how much I'm extruding things. So something like that would be about fine. Okay, so the door is taking shape. We've also got, so it kind of looks like it's being made of like boards. So let's add that detailing in here. I mean, you could add it just with the texture, but we want to go one step further. So I'm going to add in all the lines and everything for where those boards would be positioned. So I'm going to get that edge underneath there and the bottom one. Get my connect settings. Change that back to 0. So just right-clicking the arrows will change it back to 0. And then I'm going to add in 3 connections. I think that looks about right. Yeah, that's fine. And then tick. But just with the lines there, that's not going to give any actual detail. As soon as my edged faces go away, that you can't see that. So what I'm actually going to do, just realize high quality is on, let's go to high quality, is I'm going to select those 3 edges. And I'm going to look at a new tool now, which is called chamfer. So chamfering, if I just show you on like a side edge like this, let's just go to this model. This is just a demonstration, don't follow this bit. If I were to select the edges there and use chamfer, in fact I'll just use it freely first. See what that does is it kind of rounds off an edge. That's going a bit crazy. So if I went to the settings, you can do things like up the amount of edges that it's doing and things like that. Okay, so it's kind of chamfering the edge. Okay, but if I come back to my door, I can do that on these straight lines, even though it's not a corner. So what chamfer will do this time, if I move the settings out the way, is it will split those lines into multiple ones. Okay, I don't want to include the middle one because it's just going to create these polygons. So if I get that down to 0, hopefully you can kind of see there what I've done. So I've got these thin polygons here which I can extrude in to add that detailing of it being like boards. So that's great. I'm going to hit tick, go to polygon, select these tiny little ones here, zoom right in, get my extrusion settings, and I'm going to go to minus this time. And this allows me to be, a bit more careful with the extrusions, and then tick. Okay, great. So now I've got that actually added in as like details of those boards rather than just doing it with a texture later on. Cool, there's one more thing for the door we need to do is these ones going across. I think this time I'm going to make that out of another box with auto grid like I did before. So it's going to be like here, something like that. Looks pretty dead on in one. That was pretty good. Again, if yours isn't right the first time, you can use these parameters to change it. Okay, move that up and down to where it needs to be. About there, it'll be fine. Okay, So you can see that detailing on there. So rather than repeating that under here, what I can do is I can copy this one and place it down here. So now we're going to learn about copying objects or cloning objects. So what you don't want to do is do Control C to try and copy something, because that won't work in 3ds Max. In fact, I'll show you. If I were to do Control C, what that's done, see over here, is it's made a camera. And you'll also notice that you can't zoom in and out of your view anymore, okay, because it's put me into this camera view of the camera that I've made. Okay, so don't do that. I'm going to go back to my perspective. If I zoom out, you'll see there's that camera that I made with Control C. So Control C makes cameras, it doesn't copy. So I'm going to delete that. Select that again. If I want to copy something, what I do is I hold down Shift, get the axis that I want to move in, and then click and drag. And you see that's made a new copy of the object. When you let go, you actually get some options, so clone options. The only ones you need to worry about right now are these ones here, copy or instance. So if I made a copy of something, it would copy it, that's fine. But what I could then do is I could go back and edit each of them individually and they would look different. If I made it an instance and I went back and edited the original one or the new one, they would change each other. Okay, so they would always stay the same. So for example, if I make that an instance just to show you, if I then edited like the width or something of this one, notice that it's also changing the top one because it's an instance, they'll always stay the same. Okay, so that's the difference between copy and instance. Right, great, so put that about there. So now the model of the door is done. It doesn't have a handle, but that, should we add a little handle? Why not? A very simple one made out of a box. That might go like, where would it even go on this door? I don't know. Here maybe? I don't know, something like that could be a handle. There you go. There's our handle. So now this is kind of made up of multiple kind of pieces. So like before, when I attached everything together, I'm going to go to Modify, Attach, click on these objects, deselect Attach, and now that door is one piece. Okay. I'm going to go and name things because I haven't been doing that so far. So box 01 is, we can call that building underscore 01, and then the door, you can be called door underscore 01. Okay, great. So that actually took a bit longer than I was thinking, but so you can see with all these other elements, you would create them in much the same way. So like the window, we'd start with the box, we'd do the inset and extruding. The open element would be from, you'd make another box, move it into position and attach it. Very much the same kind of process. What we'll do is we'll do this door here because it's got this kind of angled archway thing going over the top of it. So first thing, I actually want to duplicate this because much of that is actually the same. So I'm going to hold Shift and drag it. I'm going to be modifying it, so I want them to be different, so I'd want to do a normal copy. Let's lower this down into where it needs to go. That height isn't right. Okay. So scaling has been something of an issue, as you can see. But that door does look smaller than the one up there, doesn't it? Don't know. So this is where you could, if you wanted to, go back and sort of change the overall size of the main building. But for me, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to cheat a little bit, is I'm going to get my scale tool, just scale this down very slightly. just because I'm aware of time, and position that there. Okay, that gives us enough space for the frame. And then if I've got enough space, I can enlarge it a little bit again afterwards. Okay, so this frame is kind of it comes out a lot further and it's kind of angled. So the first thing I'm going to think is, can I use what I already have? And the answer probably is yes. So if I go to vertices, what I can do is I can get all those top ones. So we marquee select all of them like that. So you select all those top vertices. We can just expand that size. Get the ones down this way. Expand that out that way. So just making this all a bit thicker. This marquee selecting can take time to get right, because if you accidentally get the wrong ones you don't want, things are gonna go very wrong. And then just to get that angle, all I need to do is select just these polygons down here in the corner. So if I just marquee select just those ones and then click and drag, you get that angle going on there. Okay, kind of looks a bit crazy when it gets to there, so what I'm going to do is also angle that out. Is that a bit too much of an angle, maybe? Okay, it's a bit of tweaking so you get that line a bit straighter. Do the same on the other side. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't need to be, millimeter perfect, because as long as it looks right on the eye, then you're fine. So we've got that angle of those there, but it's a lot chunkier. So what I can do is get my polygons at the front and give them another extrusion, something like that, to make that a bit chunkier. Okay. Push that back in slightly. No, that's fine. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to call this, rather than door02, I'm going to call it door underscore chunky, shall we? 01. And to be honest, at this point, I probably can scale it back up a little to match. I didn't really need to scale it down in the first place. That's fine. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, rather than go through and do every other bit of detailing, I'll give you the challenge of doing the others, because I wouldn't do anything different to create these here, and the ladder than what I've done. So you can imagine auto grid with the boxes is going to make these, auto grid to draw the boxes onto these originally, use your inset and extruding. This one's got an angle on, so remember how we did the angle on this one? You could do the angle on that little roofy bit, and then this one's nice and easy as well. Okay, so you should be able to do those with the tools that we've done. So rather than just following me, it's good to do this with what you've learnt, to kind of put into practice the tools that you've been learning already. Okay, so I'll give you the challenge of doing those, and then I'll do them now, and then I'll jump back to when I've completed them, and then hopefully yours looks something similar. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I've just finished modeling up these extra details on the model, and I think it's looking quite nice. I'm going to chuck on my high quality. Makes a minor bit of difference, I know, but we can see a little bit of shadows when we're looking at a final model. Hopefully you were able to do the same with the techniques that you've learned. So, nothing, I can't really say anything that I did differently to what we did before. I attached this, once I'd done the details of those boxes there, I just attached them into one object, and then copied them and moved them over there, rather than having to redo it lots of times. An instant advantage of having this sort of modular system. Um, yeah, everything was done in the same way. Um, one of the things that's really important that I think you should do all the time is naming things, particularly when you're doing things modularly. So like I've got this is called window open L. Might have seen a mistake there already. Window open O1. And then if I were to just copy that, for example, see it already automatically names that window open O2. So things like that are really useful. So now if I essentially had another building over here, let's say I modeled this guy up, and it was all looking great, what I can do is just get another one of these, make it an instance or something if you want to, and then you can just position it onto wherever it needs to go on your new building. Okay, I need a door on it, one of these ones, copy that, and chuck that onto where it would need to go. So just reusing these models that you've done to build up more of these buildings. Okay. Um, obviously, if you can, if it's not on the same side, you can rotate them 90 degrees, and you can chuck that one on that side. And if you wanted it to be not identical, you could make a copy of it, um, make sure it's not an instance, and then you can modify one of them slightly to look a bit different. But yeah, that's essentially it. So from this, you could make a whole street if you like. If you look at this reference image here, you can see the smaller little buildings um, done in different ways. You can make a whole street and a whole map, um, of these buildings just with the tools that we've learned. Okay, so we'll carry this project on because next time we'll look at how we can add some materials to this. So at the moment, it's either looking like this if you've used the clay view like I have, um, or if you're using default shading, you can see instantly why I prefer the clay one whilst you're modeling, then yours might look a bit something like this. But back to clay. Obviously, we'll have to come out of clay mode when we start doing the texturing. But yeah, next time we'll add some textures to this so that we can start doing some stuff with it. And then we'll look at maybe adding some lighting in and things like that. But the main purpose of this would be to put into a games engine, which is, again, we'll make a video on that in the future as well, if you're interested. Cool. But yeah, so the main thing is from here, um, you know, lots of people do these tutorials and they follow someone step by step by step, and then when it comes to having to redo that for something else, they can't do it because they're not following it step by step. Do all these extra details with what you've learned. It might take you a few goes to get it right, but the point is, by doing that, you're learning those tools, and then when it comes back to having to do it for something else in the future, you'll remember how to do it, and you can use those tools to implement in whatever other way that you need to do something. So um, hopefully that helps. And yeah, I'll see you next time.